Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Delighted to have Shelley here as always. We're talking about the general theme of fear versus destiny. What do you have for us today, Shelley?
Well, I'm excited. Thank you so much, Shrikant. Today, I'm going to be talking about self-care, right? And taking care of yourself. So I've been doing a lot of thinking as I've been prepping for this. And, you know, we have so many intelligent people. I mean, everyone here that joins these 52 Living Ideas really are, they're thinkers. And they really probably already understand a lot of the reason why that sleep is important and exercise is important, monitoring your eating habits and your mental health. So I've been thinking, like, what can I add today that will really encourage people to think deep? And my hope really is that people will take this opportunity, we'll all take this opportunity to be really a bit self-evaluative and really vulnerable and transparent when we go into the breakout rooms. Let's really be real with ourselves and real with the people in our rooms, and let's attempt to walk away with a small tangible thing that we can do to work on. So how I got started in this area was a book I read, and so my oldest son is 28, so I read this book 26 years ago, and it is for sure in my top 5 of all time reads, and it's called Margin by Dr. Richard Swenson. And the premise of the book is that he breaks life down into all these categories, and he talks about how you need margin in every single category. And he talks about physical and exercise, but he talks about, you know, finances and all of this. And that's really what got me thinking about adding margin to my life, and in what areas I felt like I needed to add margin in, and really made it a cognizant part of my life. And I believe that because I did that, especially in the areas of sleep, exercise, my eating, and my mental health, I think, you know, this laid that foundation. You know, one of the things we've been talking about here is birthed out of when I shared my story with everyone and the trials that I went through and some of the things that I've overcome and how I've been able to overcome them. I've been attempting over the course of these meetups to lay a foundation in a layered approach. So this is really one of those foundations, because if you are not taking care of yourself, and if you are not allowing margin in certain areas of your life, it's going to be much, much harder to achieve any of the goals that you set out to achieve. People use the analogy all the time. If you're in an airplane, you know, you got to get the mask on you first if you're going down before you give the mask to anyone else. And that is so true. And I feel like I've lived that personally. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about some of my own struggles in these 4 areas and the things that have been going on in my mind and some of the things that I've done to try and counteract my struggles. Most of these things I've chosen these 4 things today because I really have an outcome in mind with them. And one is, I like to feel good in the present, right? I want to be physically good. I want to have energy. I want to be mentally sharp. I want to be in that capacity now in the present, but I want to be that way down the road. I want to age well, and you can't live however you want to live in whatever capacity you want to live in. You can't eat whatever you want. You cannot never exercise. You can't constantly neglect your sleep and then be and age well in life. So anyway, that's some of the foundation for what I'm talking about today. Now, one of the things, the first thing I wrote on our list today that I was going to talk about was sleep. And I have to say, I joke that there are 2 things that I really, really suck at. And one is driving, and the other one is sleeping. And for whatever reason, I am wired where I just don't sleep well. I don't know if anyone else is like this, but I struggle to fall asleep. Anyone else struggle to fall asleep? I struggle to stay asleep, all of those things. So, one of the things, or some of the things that I do when I am struggling to sleep, because for me it goes in, it's kind of cyclic, but I watch what is causing me in my life right now that I'm not sleeping well. And let me just also say, I think we all know here that why is sleep so vital? Well, sleep is vital because our bodies repair ourselves in our sleep, right? There are so many things that happen. They even research has now shown that sleep deprivation can be tied to Alzheimer's and other real health issues. So sleep is so important. So if you are not getting good sleep, I would encourage you to do some research, figure out what might be causing that. Be in tune with your body and your environment. Some of the things that I do is I listen to some spa music to try and relax myself. I'll be honest, there are times when I will take a sleep aid to help me get to sleep if I've gone many days without sleeping. I think sleep is so vital and is really a foundation. If you're sleep deprived, then you're not going to be able to face the challenges in life, and you're not going to be able to do them well. The other thing that is really on my mind, and anyone that has attended any of the meetups with me has heard me talk about my running and how important running is to me. Exercise doesn't have to be running for you. And as I'm talking about all these things, they're going to be different for everyone, right? My hope is, as I'm sharing my own struggles and what I'm doing about them, it's going to get the juices flowing for you. And you're going to think for yourself what your own struggles are and what you do to overcome them. So for me, brain chemistry is vital to me being emotionally stable. And the way that I get those good endorphins in my brain is running. Now, when I was in the worst part of my stress, which I would say is when I was on welfare. I still had 3 kids living at home. Every month I wasn't really sure how I was going to pay the bills. I was working and I was also going to school. And my stress was just, I just sleep. I would get like maybe 4 hours of sleep a night. I've really struggled in every area. But one thing that I did without fail is I said, hey, I'm going to run 2 days a week. And some people might think, well, what is 2 days going to do for you? But for me, that was all I could do. And it is exactly what I needed. I didn't say, well, I'm going to run every single day. I'm going to run 8 miles every day, or I'm going to run whatever. All it was I needed 20 minutes of exercise. I needed to get my heart rate pumping for 20 minutes, 2 times a week. And that would help my brain. And I will say, even when I'm not in the most stressful season, right now I'm in a very, very busy season of life. My work, I've got a lot of pressure at work. I'm doing these meetups every week. I'm not doing as much as Sri Khan. I don't know how you are doing it. Just one every other week is a lot for me. But I've got these things going on, right? I don't have time. I can't be running every day. It's not going to happen. So I have goals that look a little different now than they did maybe a decade or 20 years ago. So I run 2 days a week, and I try to fit in 2 HIIT workouts at home, and that's 20 minutes. And I would just say, if you are not getting exercise, you evaluate. And if you are saying to yourself, I don't have time, well, we're going to talk about excuses in a minute. So we'll get there in a hot minute. Anyway, so I am making sure that I get some exercise in, a minimum of 2 a week, because I want that brain chemistry in my head. I want those good endorphins. I want to be even keeled. And I will say that I can head out for a run and I can be really angry, or I can be really sad or depressed. I can feel really overwhelmed, like I'm never going to make it. I'm not going to get through this day. I remember I used to really struggle with feeling successful. I'm never going to feel successful. And 9 times out of 10, I will get done with just a short run and I will feel better. I'll feel, hey, I can make it. I'm going to make it. It's not as bad as I think it is. And that is what exercise does for your brain. It's so vital. The other thing is eating habits. So, this is really different for everybody. I don't adhere to, you have to eat one particular way in order for it to work for you. I think the key with healthy eating is to listen to your body and be in tune with your body. I know what doesn't feel good when I put it in my body. Sometimes I choose to put it in my body anyway, especially when it's in the form of like sugar or something like that. But for the most part, because I'm motivated to feel physically good, I pay attention to what I put in my body. And over the years, I figured out what works for me. And what works for me is a high protein and fruit and veggie diet. Now, I definitely drink a lot of coffee though, and I sure enough have some wine in the evenings. I am not, super like rigid. But again, I'm paying attention to my body. And I would encourage you, if you are paying attention to what you eat and how it makes you feel, take some time, give yourself like 2 weeks and pay attention, what you eat, what does it do to your stomach? What does it do to your mind? Do you eat something and it fogs your mind up? Pay attention to that and make choices based off of that. For some people, my mom, she's big into fruits and vegetables and she eats very lean protein. That's what works good for her. And I hear other people who are pescatarians and vegetarians, and there's all kinds of debate, Jordan Peterson, I'm a huge Jordan Peterson fan, and he eats an all beef diet. Him and his daughter discovered that they have a certain chemistry or chemical makeup in their body that works for them. So don't hold yourself to someone else's standards. Figure out what works for you so that you can be the best version of yourself that you can be. Now, mental health, I really feel like all of these play into your mental health. I especially think that the running does. But I will say that some years ago, so I have, my mind is, I'm sure a lot of y'all are the same way. My mind is very active, lots and lots of thoughts. And sometimes my thoughts are just like, it's too much. They're all in my head, going. And so I found I needed to, within myself, I needed to find a place where I could bring calm to my brain. And so for me, what I found out works is yoga and meditation. And I don't know, we hear lots of people in these meetups talk about what works for them and what they do. And again, I would say, if you are not doing anything for your mental health, whatever that is, a walk in nature. It's one of the reasons I love to run outside, because I love being around the beauty of nature. It does something for my brain. Whatever it is, think about, especially if you're not in a good space in life. If your life is really, really stressful right now, or even if it's not, carve out some space, carve out some time. Now, that's where I'm going to come to two last things here that I'm going to talk about. One is healthy goals, and one is dealing with excuses. So first, healthy goals. And I don't know if anyone watched the video from 2 weeks ago, the YouTube video, but that was so wonderfully helpful. And it was about just improving 1%. I'm sure a lot of people on here have seen that concept of just improving, 1%. So let me encourage you not to compare yourself to anybody but yourself, right? And if you got 1% better in one category every day, maybe not all 4 of these, maybe you pick one. Can you imagine where you would be in 1 year at 1% better? So let's say you really want to do something big. And I think I used this analogy last time with exercise. Maybe you want to start running. That's an easy topic for me. You're not going to step out the door and run a marathon. You're not going to do that, right? That goal would be too lofty. So pick a good, healthy goal that's within the bounds that you can accomplish, something that you enjoy, something that I really need to do this because I'm having negative physical consequences. Pick something and then just do one tiny little step. And then the next day, another. And then the next day, another. Make sure that your goals are healthy. They're reasonable, they're achievable. And then don't compare yourself to anyone else. And the other thing I would say is that, we all backslide in our goals. I do as well. I always have goals. I have lists of goals. I'm always thinking about what I want to achieve. I have career goals. I have personal goals. I found a notebook when I was unpacking in my new house, and it was lists of evaluations of my children, their strengths and weaknesses, and all their goals that we were going to work on. So this is really natural for me, right? But be gracious to yourself when you're setting your goals. goals, right? You know, there are going to be days that just don't go well. Like, I haven't exercised in 2 days. It's just been the way my week has been. But I'm setting an intention now. I'm getting up. It's going to be freezing and raining, but I'm getting up and I'm getting 3 miles in the morning. I'm not going to sit back and think about what I didn't do today or yesterday. Tomorrow's a new day. It's a new reset, and I'm going to go for my goals again tomorrow. Now, so that's, I kind of see people falling into 2 camps, right? You know, their goals are too lofty, and then they end up not, maybe they're perfectionists and they don't end up achieving them. But then in the other camp, there's a group of people, and I feel like they know the right thing to do, but they have an excuse for everything. And I just would say, if you are one of those people, and I make excuses too, like they're in my head and I battle them, right? If you're someone who acts on your excuses, let's say you know you need to get a little bit of exercise, your joints are really hurting, or maybe you need to eat better, your cholesterol is high, I don't know, whatever that is. You know, think about the excuses that you're making and say, okay, I'm making an excuse. Let me figure out what steps I can take, because when we say we don't have time, we do have time. We all have time for what we really want. And I really feel like in life, we do what we really want to do. You know, we say, oh, I really wish I could do that. And then you never do it, but you probably just don't really want to do it bad enough. So if you're someone who makes excuses and aren't achieving your goals, I would just say have a realistic, a transparent conversation with yourself. And that's one of the benefits from the meetup where we talked about how understanding yourself, you know, understanding your strengths and weaknesses is so foundational, because we want to be able to look at ourselves clearly in a mirror and be real with ourselves about what's really going on, so we can capitalize on our strengths, but we can also address our weaknesses. So if excuses are a weakness, then I would definitely encourage you to evaluate that. Shrikant, that's all I got for today. I do have, let me pull up, I have copied what we're going to talk about in breakout today. Let me pull it up in the chat.
Let me go ahead and put the guidelines for the breakout rooms. So folks, again, as I said, this is not TV, these are workshops. So Shelley has put these thoughts on the table. Now she has specific questions she wants you to consider. In the breakout rooms, let everybody talk about their answers to the questions for the first 1 to 2 minutes. Then you can have a discussion. Rules are you have to keep on topic, be brief, be courteous, encourage others to speak. And if needed, you just click on ask for help and I'll help you. All right. So what are the questions, Shelley?
We're not really dealing with a question. This is really a time for introspection and self-evaluation. And really, we want to be as transparent as possible. And we want to be encouraging to one another in our breakout rooms. So pick one of those areas: sleep, exercise, eating habits, or mental wellness. And as transparently as possible, evaluate yourself with your breakout participants, and then see what feedback they provide. And that's it for today.
Wonderful. So we're going to now go to the breakout rooms for 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, automatically we'll come back into this room and we'll be sharing our takeaways and asking questions, starting the breakout rooms now. So folks, we've got very simple rules. We've got 4 rules that we have used for 5 years in the New York meetups. Rule number 1, you type an exclamation mark in chat in order to speak. We want you to share your takeaways. Again, this is not spectator sports. This is not TV. This is interactive. So type exclamation mark to speak. You can share your takeaways, as well as you can ask a question to Shelley. All right. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, keep on topic. Rule number 3, be brief. Rule number 4, feel free to disagree with anybody on anything, and do so courteously. All right. So let's see here. We've got a whole bunch of people lined up. So it's going to be Judith, JS, Shaf, Deborah, Dave, Joe, Ralph, and Jyoti. So Judith, you're first. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Shelley for that 1% rule. I watched that video, And that really got me rolling. I did that immediately the next day after our meetup. So I implemented that, and I computed 14.4 minutes per day on whatever my target item was. And one of the things they said too was that choose an item that has, I don't remember the word, how they said it, but how he said it, but basically it has the greatest impact on the other goals that you have in your life. So I did. So I picked the one that is most horrible to me, the one that I don't want to do, because that will actually help the others. And I've seen that. So that's good. But of your 4 that we had to talk about today, sleep, okay, that was mine. And looks like other people had some sleep issues. And Shelley, you said you did too. So I just wanted to give you a suggestion that's worked for me in the past.
Please, I'm all ears.
Okay. All right. So when you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't sleep, just get up. Well, are your sons at home these days?
I just have one at home.
All right. Well, all right. I don't know. You may have to use your judgment. He may not allow this, but you turn the music up really loud and then you just dance. Could be 5 minutes, could be an hour, you know, whatever your body wants to do. I've done within anything within that range. Then I go back to sleep and I sleep like a baby. So try it sometime.
Yeah, last night I woke up and ate ice cream. That didn't help. I think what I need to do is what you said. Good idea. I'm taking a note. Dance, because I do like to dance now.
Wonderful. Next up is JS. JS, go ahead.
Thank you, Shelley. In our breakout room, it seemed like the oldest of us have the same problem that keeps us from the self-care, which would be discipline. And so I have a question for you, which is, it's not like I suspect that some of these would be good practices. I know for a fact that things will be good for me. So what do you think the problem is in the way there? And what have you found to be the most helpful for people that want to instrument more discipline before they get in so much pain that they have to?
Yeah. So the last meetup, we talked about something that I call forced action, and you might want to go listen to that. I made a blog post on it on my website, shelleyunderwood.com, so you could also read it, read a verbal a write-up on it. But I think you have to force yourself to act in spite of how you feel. I have to do that all the time. And so what happens though, when you force yourself, like there's whatever the thing is that, you know, you want to be more self-disciplined about and you're not doing it. When you force yourself, you know, that first time is really hard, but then you force yourself again and again, and it starts getting a little easier and a little easier and a little easier. And I think it was SB in our group. She's talking about how she wanted to start running and she's been running and now she loves it. And, you know, that's kind of my story with running as well, because the brain chemistry gets going and you begin to really respond to that chemistry and love it with exercise and running. But in other ways, I'm telling you, if you will commit to doing something and force yourself to do it in spite of how you feel, over time, it will map to your brain and it will get easier and you'll form that habit. And that's really the key, is doing it enough so it becomes a habit, and then it becomes mapped to your brain and it becomes easier over time.
Wonderful. Next up is Shaf. Shaf, go ahead.
Yes. So, speaking of habits, one thing that I recall that speaking about in the breakout room, I luckily don't have as many sleep issues currently. However, one thing that I do on a regular basis every morning when I get up, before I go to work and before I do anything else, is I get ready, but right after that is that I play guitar for about half an hour every day. And I make sure I do that religiously because to me that helps, one, that helps mentally balance me, and two, that helps differentiate my day from the rest of the day. Because like my day job has nothing to do with music, but it feels like it's just something that creates this sort of barrier between my personal world and my professional world, which is healthy in my mind to have maintaining a mental balance. So
I'm writing that down. That is so good. I think I'm going to try and implement that. I love what you're saying about differentiating the day, right? Because we have this work life that's now become more home all the time. And how do you even differentiate from work and, you know, home life? And I'm going to find something and do that. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And, you know, I have a son who is, I have several boys who play instruments, and my number 2 boy, Brady, he's classically trained in the guitar, and he gets such joy from playing, and I get joy from listening to him. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So thanks for sharing that so much. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Deborah, Dave, and Joe. Deborah.
Okay, so mine was sleep too. That was definitely like number 1. But Shelley, when you said that thing at the end about how we basically do what we want to do, like that really resonated with me, because I definitely get like short-term enjoyment or something, even if it isn't great for me long-term, out of like doing things instead of sleeping. And I know I shouldn't do that, but I'm like, oh, I want to do things that like, you know, like are fun but distracting. So even little things like putting my phone away, or we talked about not watching the news. I love the news on at night. I can turn that off. That does not put me in a good like mental state. But yeah, definitely. But people in my group gave what I thought was actually really interesting sort of like psychological advice, because I was talking about having nightmares. So people were like, oh, you know, like you could try to like maybe talk to like the characters in your dreams if you can like be conscious of that, or like asking questions, like certain things about like being conscious of your dreams and trying to like do that. And I thought that was really cool. But we also talked about the idea of like maybe taking note of what works for you. So like if there are times when like, you know, you feel more calm, or like you're having better dreams or something like that, like maybe like take note of that and say like, oh, how is this different than other times? So I feel like maybe mixing like some sort of practical advice, like not having your phone or the TV on, with like maybe just like encouraging yourself and like trying to talk yourself through dreams could be like a good mixture, I guess.
I love that. Deborah, I just want to say it's good to see your face, by the way. It's so good to see you. So it's good. So you know what, one of the things I really like what you said is, and it ties, I think, to one of the things that I said, is just being aware of how you feel, like taking notes. So when you feel good, then it's, you want to do those things, right? And when you feel bad, well, don't do that thing that is making you feel bad. So I think that that's great advice. I don't have dreams like that. I can't imagine. That would be really challenging. So like, let us know how that goes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Dave. Dave, go ahead.
Con, I'm so happy I beat Joe to the punch tonight, but doing my little part. But Shelley, you're in a room now with 42 consultants. So my idea for your sleeping, do your meditation just before you go to sleep. Because I meditate, I start with these meditation meetups we were doing several months ago, and I'm doing it more. And half the time I'll fall asleep during my meditation, but it's very calming and relaxing. And I've gotten the point, I use my Alexa for, babbling brook or waterfall sounds. It is so calming. And I think you probably can find some of these that will automatically shut off maybe after 10 minutes. And I bet if you set for 10 minutes, you'll be dead to the world by the time it's over. But good luck to you. Give us a full report in a couple of weeks.
Dave, it's so good to see you. And thank you for your advice. I value that so much, and I'm going to take it.
Great.
Thank you. Next up is Joe, Ralph, and Jyoti. Joe.
Well, I'm actually glad Dave beat me to the punch. But the one thing that we talked about and focused on in our breakout room was the idea of margins and how important they are. And one of the things that I've experienced in dealing with elderly people in multiple different settings is the very first thing that goes are the margins, like these little things that impact them in a very big way. But the opposite is also true. If you think about it, the point you were making earlier, that if you just do a little bit and you exercise and run 2 days a week, and these little margins that we don't necessarily see, they turn into actually big things. So these little things turn into big things. And this is as true for when we get older as what they are right now. And I think that that's a really important point to consider when we sometimes are taking on a new task and we look for that instant gratification that we think, we have to work out 3 hours a day, or we have to do this, all this type of regimen and keep up with this type of regimen in order to achieve our goals. Our goals are actually made in little increments with patience. And something that you'd said that was really another takeaway was not comparing yourself to others, but looking to comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. And that's an important principle to really think about when you're trying to make those incremental steps then they can actually become really big things. So that was the key takeaway, is just the distinction of how margins really do make all the difference in the world. But one of the other things that I brought up is the area that I would probably focus on the most would be exercise, because it's a trigger for all the other areas, in the sense that it does help you sleep, so that there's this release that you then are able to sleep. And then all of a sudden you don't want to throw away the exercise that you put in, so you eat healthier. So there's these other, it's kind of this one little thing that actually you have to figure out which one. I mean, they're all, it's part of a holistic way of living.
Mhm.
But what is the one thing that maybe gets you, that can get you and help the other, augment the other things and get you to where you really want to be. So that's the area that I identified for me. But it's interesting to hear that other people have other perspectives on how they necessarily, what areas they think. Sleep is obviously critical, but again, a way to get sleep is to exercise. So I'll just, those are all my takeaways. So thank you for bringing up the margin aspect of things, because it's really hard for me to see that sometimes. And in fact, I never see it. I'm not going to say that. I mean, I just don't. I am an all or nothing kind of individual.
Yeah.
So, which is completely unhealthy and unbalanced. So,
Well,
so
maybe
hearing
so.
your
There's
story
also-
of 2 days a week was important.
There's some good in that too, Joe. So don't sell yourself out. There's some good in that too. But I do think I'm also more of an extremist also. And so I've had to learn how to live in the gray, right? To become more like moderate and centric. But just 2 comments really quickly to what you said. And thank you so much for sharing all that. I just always appreciate getting your feedback. Years ago, I realized that life is lived in the mundane. It's lived in the little choices that we make every day, just as we're plodding along in life. We're never really, hilltop moments are rare, and we're not going to make choices. If all we're waiting to make choices are some mountaintop, big event, we're never going to make them. Life is lived in the mundane. The choices you make are in the mundane. How you treat other people is in the mundane. So that some of the things that you said there reminded me of that. It's just in the everyday little things that we have to make these choices. And then it's interesting you're bringing up margin, because honestly, this book had such an impact on me, and I have not thought about it in so long. I give copies of books away, so I don't even have it anymore because I gave it away to someone a while back. But Joe, if that is an area that you want to maybe learn more about, this book, it's by Dr. Swenson, Richard Swenson. And if I remember, it's a really pretty easy read because it's very practical and life applicable. But he talks about that. He talks about the margins in life in every area we've got to create for ourselves, because when life goes awry, as it is going to go awry, you can bet money on it, that will happen. You have got to have this area on the side to go into in order to survive it well. And that had a huge impact on me. You might really like that book.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Ralph, Jyoti, and Mark. Ralph, go ahead.
Yes, hi. No, I've never heard of the concept of margins, but I am experienced with having to take areas of my life and try to improve upon them, only because they were forced upon me. I've lived my life as, I just do things as I feel and never as I need to. So with that, I never really thought of taking care of myself. So exercise and eating habits have been forced on me quite early. And, I've been very disciplined, luckily, with that. Mental wellness, I've been on there, as well, but more so now than ever because of my current situation, which is, really bad. But sleep is an area that I find that makes a difference for me. So, but I have a problem with sleep, very much so. So that's definitely an area that I didn't really think that I should really, work on to work on. But one more note too is that I'm used to using distractions as a way to keep myself from having to deal with anything. So I make excuses all the time not to do anything that would improve my, situation, or even myself, to even take care of myself, or see myself in a better light. But thank you, and I will read that book. I'm curious more about Richard Swanson's book on margins. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very powerful in my life, and really set the stage for a lot of the choices that have played out in my life, I think, positively. And I just want to encourage you, if you didn't watch the video from last week, 2 weeks ago, go back, and I think we posted that in the Meetup app. You can find it there, but be encouraged. If there is an area in life that you haven't taken action on, just remember, you have to step out the door and run a marathon. You just got to step out the door and lay shoes up and take a small step. And then the next day you take two steps. It's in these small, incremental, tiny little steps that we really can, over a lifetime, begin to make the difference that we want to in ourselves. So be encouraged.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Next up is Jyoti, Mark, and Jade. Jyoti.
Yeah, hi. Shelley, you did a good job. Yes, these are the important things in life, other than, your love relationship and what have you. And I will tell the young people who are here, younger people who are here, I'm still very young. Right?
Yes, you are. Yes,
Oh, thank you. I'm
are.
not. I'm just making a mockery out of myself. What I was going to say was, if you want to achieve balance in life, you have to start all these things very early in life. I started that at the age of 46 to 48, something like that. And I'm very well disciplined now in the area of at least in the area of exercises, eating good food. It's like a food is a medicine for me. And I mean, after the exercises, I have endorphins flying all over. My mood gets better. My attitude is good. I have the motivation to do the tasks. However, out of the last two, mental health, I'm still working on it because my circumstances have taken a downward spiral in my life. So I'm working on it. But sleep, when I do and there was somebody over here who said dancing. I think, on the contrary, if you do your dancing in the afternoon and all the exercises that I do on the elliptical and what have you, that's better, because sometimes just before my Zoom here, I finish my exercises and I'm tired a little bit. I want to relax rather than focus.
Right.
So you know what I mean? So then when I go to bed, I'm like a little bit discombobulated. So I think if you have to do the exercises, make it a morning thing after after your breakfast or before your breakfast. They say if you do it before your breakfast, then you target your fat cells. But I keep looking at the clock if I do it before the breakfast. So after the breakfast, I'm like a free spirit. I will get on it. I'll do the treadmill. I'll go out. I'll do everything. And I have the luxury of living by the river. So I will meditate, right? Like I'm watching the river, the tides going up and down, and I'm meditating. So that puts a sense of calmness in me. And that, just changes the whole tone. So I would suggest that if you are young, you are in your 40s and 50s, please start all that now. Because when you will get to my age, believe me, that will not be a chore for you. That will be a regular habit. That's like a routine for you. And if you don't do your routine, you feel lost. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I agree with you. That came up in our breakout room too. The idea of getting out, and if I set an intention in the morning to get out and run in the net, like I'll set it at night and I'll do it in the morning, and then it gets done, and I don't have to worry about work runs over, my son needs me for something, whatever happens, because I've done it first thing in the morning. I 100% agree with you on that. 100%. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Next up is going to be Mark, Jade and Kevin. Mark.
Okay, so thanks, Shelley, for all your positive energy, helpful topics today. A lot of good ideas. I wanted to just touch on a couple of what I think I heard some common themes in our group and some things I heard people say. I think we are facing a pandemic, which I think has sabotaged some of people's habits and schedules, maybe thrown them off track. Those, like I personally used to do certain things based upon when I got home from work. I would do A, B, C. Well, I don't have that trigger of getting out the car and coming home from work anymore. So I've got to adapt. And I also think there's a challenge with the time sink of social media. Again, speaking personally, I found myself staying up late, either on the internet or I'm on a Zoom meeting with people in another time zone where they've got, on the West Coast, they've got another 3 hours to go, but I'm staying up with them when I really shouldn't. And I've talked to other people who said this is a challenge for them too. So there's a couple of things to be aware of maybe, but also I have a couple of suggestions I wanted to follow up on. That concept of success is through continual mundane choices made every day. I think is very important to bear that in mind. However, having to think through things and continually remind yourself is somewhat exhausting. I think the key to success is making your preferred behaviors into habits or routines. I think Jyoti was just saying that. Now, whether those routines involve doing it first thing in the morning or whatever, it depends on, some people are morning people, some people are evening people. I have my own ideas about that, but I do think it is a personal thing. One thing I do suggest, though, when you're trying to come up with these things, especially if you find it's something that you're struggling to do, like you maybe don't really want to do it, or you don't see the benefit of doing it psychologically for some reason. I found that trick, which is not original, but I found it very helpful, was to tell yourself you're someone who chooses or likes to do this activity. Like, I'm choosing to meditate, I'm choosing to run, I'm choosing to swim or whatever. Make it like that you're choosing to do it. Get rid of that I should do this, I ought to do this, because then every time you don't do it, you feel bad. And I think that's self-sabotaging. And following on that thought about, if it's something that you used to be succeeding at, and maybe now COVID has thrown you off track, think back to like, what's different now as compared to when you were succeeding at this? Like, take an example, you used to exercise regularly. Why do you not do that anymore? Is it because you used to stop at the gym on the way home from work? Or was it because you had a group of friends that you used to exercise with? And now you don't have that. So if you look at, maybe it's the time of day. Again, there's a time of day when you should be trying to do this and you're not. So if you look at that, you can maybe recognize what's different now and maybe compensate to get yourself back on track. But the ultimate thing is always to make it into habits and make it as easy to do for yourself as possible. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. I always appreciate what you have to share. You have such great insight. I want to make two comments. One, very important what you said. Yes, we can't compare ourselves to other people, right? That's why I think it's so important to really listen to your body and see what works best for you, whether it's exercise, what makes you feel healthy eating wise. So that's a very important point that you said. Also, self-talk is so valuable. And when you were talking about, saying that you liked it, the image that immediately came to mind for me is when I'm running and I'm running hills and I'm like, I hate hills. And I'm like, you love hills, Shelley. Hills is your favorite. Hills are the best thing ever. And, I'm just trying to do anything I can so that I will sustain what I'm trying to accomplish, right? By talking to myself. So that's such a valuable point, and I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing.
Excellent. Next up is Jade, Kevin, and Dee. Jade.
I don't know, this is a weird topic for me because, it's more, I think one of the other people who came before was saying that part of their upbringing was diet and all those other things. And that was also how it was for me. So on a certain extent, I get it, but also I don't get it because it's something that on some level I've been able to take for granted. But what I can say is that it feels like we're talking more about lifestyle. And I think that's how it was more presented to me. Like, this is how we live. It wasn't presented as like, I don't know. It was just the way we live. I don't know how to explain it better than that. So, and I think also, I was also kind of, because I was a finicky child, especially with eating. So I recognize that even everything had to be manageable from the beginning. And it had to be manageable for me, and it had to be manageable for my mother. Like if it was not, and if it wasn't manageable, we would not be able to sustain it. So most of it was about finding something that was sustainable and did not stress us out. So in the external, it was a battle between her and I.
Mm.
Now it's more of a sense of a battle between me and myself. Like, I'm not fighting myself. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, sometimes I need to give myself an extra push, but usually even when I see that I have to give myself too much of a push, I'm like wondering, like, why isn't this working? Like, why are you forcing yourself to do this? Like, if you don't want to eat kale, eat spinach. If you don't want to eat spinach, eat salad. If you don't want to eat salad, like, to find something that is kind of manageable. I think, again, Mark was a great person to go after, because he was talking pretty much about lifestyle and how your environmental factors play into what it is that you're doing. And I think that was also a key, is because a lot of my environments kind of supported me supporting myself. Were they perfect? No, but they after high school we'd go, I get cheese fries, but it's like, I also was raised to believe that there was nothing wrong with eating cheese fries, as long as you had a sense of balance. Because I would find, like, there were places I would work, and kids would see me eat a salad, and then they would see me with a cookie, even though I baked and I brought stuff to work all the time for everyone. So she's like, "You were eating a cookie?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm eating a cookie. Like, I bake all the time." Like, I think there's that balance of what, again, can you sustain a life without cookies ever? If there if there isn't, and especially now we have so many alternatives. So no matter what your dietary needs, you can still kind of, if you're willing to experiment, you could probably find that balance where you get a bit of everything. I also was kind of, again, because I was finicky. I say finicky, so I don't say difficult. I was finicky. So we had to hack me a lot. And I continue to do that, like water. Like, I will forget to eat because I'm absent-minded. I don't know if you guys notice that. I forget what I'm saying all the time. But like, even right now, I have a water pitcher right here. This is actually my water pitcher. They're all color-coded according to the room. I have a red one, but it's empty. So like, I just messed up my system, and the whole system will get messed up. Before, I did it with water bottles. I have water bottles in the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room, my bedroom. Every single room, there was a water bottle. Why? Because the less I have to think about something also, the better it is. Too many steps, I'm not going to do it. Again, not sustainable. I'm not, it sounds silly, but me having to get up from my room to stop what I'm doing, to go get water and to come back, I'm not doing that if I'm into what I'm doing. Because I tend to hyper focus also. So it's kind of also to know your wiring and how it is that you are. And there's sometimes also eat the frog first concept. So if you know that you don't like something, maybe you're not an eat dessert first person, but maybe you are an eat dessert first person. So it's like, do you need to eat the frog first, or do you need to eat the dessert first? Which one is for you? And I hope, well, some people like to eat frogs, but like, I don't know. I'm not advising anybody to eat frogs. It's just a phrase. To do the thing that you like least first. The last thing that I think I'll say, is also, if you pay attention to yourself, like, I don't like being uncomfortable. That was another reason why it was difficult. I don't like, especially physically uncomfortable. I used to be, again, it was packed into my lifestyle. I danced, so like, I was always active. There was always stretching. There was always things like that. And then when I slowed down with that, I noticed that different things with my body, because I'd always be like this, and my cousin would always be like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Ah," but I sleep on the floor, and people think that's the weirdest thing in the world. And I have like a mat, like one of those mattress toppers, but I even had to get a new one to get it thinner because I don't feel the support of the floor. And I recognized what was the difference between now and then. One of the big ones was that I don't spend any time on the floor, so I'm not getting realigned. And again, people think they think it's stupid. They're like, "Why are you sleeping on the floor?" But I'm like, it's my back. I'm going to sleep on the floor if I want to sleep on the floor. And it actually helps me. Even not sleeping with a pillow, it helps. Is it what I want to do all the time? Not necessarily, but I also recognize that I'm more comfortable like throughout the day. So it's like, but I'm not uncomfortable. I still like it. So it's just like, but I think again, it's that conditioning. So it's the objective versus the ideal. Yeah, it's the objective versus the ideal. So is the ideal going to help you get what you need? No, I'm not going to be in a bed. Or sometimes I don't get hungry because again, I hyperfocus. So drinking my meals is one of the things my mother also did. I didn't like Carnation Instant Breakfast. That thing is chalky. That's what it's telling the group. But like I used to be able to do a lot of milk. Whole milk, and the fat content in addition to the protein and all that other stuff, it was great. I drink like 24 ounces of whole milk. To some people that sounds ridiculous because it kind of is, but that's what kept me going. Even now but I can't do the same dairy because I physically malfunction with too much dairy. So it's just like even now you can hear me coughing a little bit because I have a little dairy, but it's you find something else. Like what, again, it's the components, the objective. What has high protein? What can give myself that's high protein, high fat, and high whatever? So I don't know. I think some of it comes to hacking, but also not stressing myself out. So that's what I got to say. I think I said too much, but all right, that's my 2 cents.
No, I appreciate that. And so there were 2 things that I picked out of there that definitely agree with you on balance. We do need to be balanced, and we need to be listening to ourselves and aware of ourselves so that we can be choosing that. And Mark, something that you said reminded me of what Mark said in our breakout. And he said that sometimes, and something you said at the very beginning reminded me of this. And Mark said that sometimes our goals are not really what we want, that our goals are something that have been forced upon us by something else, by others, whatever, our lifestyle, our family, you can put anything in there. And so he said a lot of time, and Mark, I may not be saying this as well as you did. I don't know if you want to step in and like rescue me from this, but it was really powerful.
Well, I was just talking about, yeah, you're attempting to achieve something and you find you're not doing it. Well, why is it? Because you don't actually want to. So why are you doing it? Because you should do it, because you ought to do it. And where's that coming from? It's normally coming from an external source and like expectations, basically, of society, the people you care about. So, and you may end up actually doing it if you can get to the root of why you're doing it. Like, I'm doing it because I should do it. And why should you do it? Because somebody told me I should. Well, you may not like that. Don't like being told what to do. But if you turn it around and say like, oh, they said that because they care about me. They don't want me to die of a heart attack. They want me to lose weight. That's why they want me to exercise. Now it becomes a whole different should. It becomes, I should do this because I care about the fact that they care about me. Now I've understand my motivation. Now I can succeed. But if you don't understand your motivation, and in fact, it's a false motivation because it's that voice from the outside telling you how you should live your life, that's a big problem. I said, even if you do succeed, I don't think you'll be happy. When you're exercising 5 days a week, but you don't feel happy about it, then maybe 5 days a week of exercise isn't what you should be doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Kevin, followed by D. Kevin.
Topic. My problem is about sleep, and my
Kevin, Kevin, your audio is very low. It's barely.
Now better.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. My takeaway about sleep too. I would say the question is how to work with our brain to set idle and find a calm moment. Yourself like make something self-bored or feel physically tired and self-calm. Imagine you are in a boring class, like for chemistry. You don't like a teacher or class. You want to sleep or find a boring book and repeat music. And Laura and myself shared in a breakout room, count a number with deep breath. 1, then breathe in and breathe out. Then 2, breathe in, breathe out. Then try repeat. I got a question. I'm not Shelley, do you mind share the handwriting on the wall behind the what I I would say that inspired me sleeping. If I can, it's like your mind slow down quite. What's the handwriting on the behind the wall? Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, were you asking me a question? I'm not sure I
the
followed that.
question
Please
is
forgive
that
me.
the question is on the whiteboard behind you. There is
Yes.
something written. What is it?
Okay, that's what I thought he asked, but I wasn't 100% sure. So let me turn around for a second. So this is a quote from Mother Teresa. Let me get it right. I'm not good at this. Okay, and it says, if you want to bring happiness to the whole world, go home and love your family. And that's what my whole life has been about. It's been loving my family and my relationships with them. And my sister got that for me for Christmas one year because I fell in love with it.
Yeah, keep it. That's nice.
Thank you.
Bring it to your bedroom. I would say make you sleep.
Yeah. That's a good idea, Kevin. I'm gonna ponder on that. I'm gonna ponder on it. Hey, Kevin, I wanted to say one thing about, you were talking about counting, and I do that at times, and that does help. And then for those that are struggling to sleep like me, I found this Spotify playlist that is, it's spa music, but it's like guitar. I have been falling asleep like a baby to that. It's been awesome. So anyway, Spotify guitar spa music. It's like pink with some flowers on it is the album cover. So maybe that'll help people too.
Wonderful. Next up is Dee.
Yes, I agree with Kevin that, to get a good night's sleep, one of the key factors that I believe is when your mind is racing, you have to empty your mind so that you're not thinking about anything else. You're not planning, you're not thinking, you're not projecting what you have to do. And, I was thinking my husband used to be like Shelley, always thinking. And I laid in bed one night and I finally realized you have to empty your mind so that you can relax. And the breathing does help to relax you. One of the things that the points I wanted to bring up was making excuses versus having intention. So we make excuses because we don't have an intention on why we want to do something. And very much like what Mark said, is that, you may not want to do something and you tell yourself you shoulda, woulda, coulda, but what you really probably should look at is, why do you want to do it? Why do you want to do something? Or why do you want not to do something? Why do you want to eat better? Why do you want to exercise? And is it the right exercise? One of the things that came out in our discussion was one person was struggling with the idea, the concept that, exercise is not enjoyable for that person. So, but why is it not enjoyable? It's supposed to promote health, but if it's not doing it for you, then you have to look at either the method of exercise or the type, who you're exercising with or who you're not exercising with. So, those are the things that I think are important. And the margin aspect, you do have to have parameters, because by having parameters, you can separate yourself out. For example, today, I was talking to somebody at a quick chat, and I said, well, I just got off work and I need to decompress. So, I was putting up a barrier to my engagement chatter with that person, because I just got off work. I hadn't separated my personal life yet. It hadn't disconnected. So, I was trying to indicate to the person, you got to give me a couple minutes to, engage in this chit chat, So needless to say, it didn't work out, but that's okay. That's another matter. For your state of being and your eating habits, your eating habits is, the old saying is, you are what you eat. So this month,
I can honestly say I've been a food junkie, but it's okay. Like you said, sometimes, you can be good for so long, and sometimes you just have to fall off the wagon. Okay. What I think is that, and I know my diet, I don't like dieting. I don't like the word dieting, but I do like the concept of eating well, being well, and living well. And I think, like Jody, I'm in a very good place in my life right now. I started very late in life doing my exercise regimen. And I can say that, I'm almost where I want to be. I got a couple more years to work on it, but I'm almost where I want to be.
Wonderful.
And
Thank you, Dee. You want to wrap up? Please go ahead.
no, that's okay. That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Dee. Shelley?
Yeah, so two comments. I love everything that you had to say, especially about, I think it's important to comment on that, the idea of self-discipline, right? And you're saying, every now and then you just have to throw it to the wind. And again, I keep bringing this book up in every meetup, but it's Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, because he talks about that very thing. And it really has resonated with me because my diet is not as rigid as it used to be since I took on a role that is very stressful. And Daniel Kahneman's words resonate in my mind. And part of the reason why is I'm giving so much discipline and effort to my career that by the end of the day, I'm spent. And it kind of, it's no wonder when you work hard in a career and you get home at night and people are just doing fast food, or whatever, because you're tired and you don't have that. So one of the things, if that is a struggle like that is for me, then it's a matter of, well, how do we guard that? So that we have the glucose, the brain power in order to be self-disciplined when we need to be. And then also, I 100% agree with you. I do not like the word diet. If you go on a diet, I hate to say this, but likely it's not going to stick because it has to be lifestyle, right? It has to be long-term changes that you make with a little bit of party and fun thrown in when you break your self-discipline, right? And you eat whatever you want and splurge. So anyway, those are my comments. And thank you, Dee, for sharing. That was good advice.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Dee. I just wanted to make one comment. I'm hearing all these views and I'm trying to hear them very closely, and they're very different from each other. The strategies are very different from each other. So I think a big thing is to actually figure out what works for you, because each of us is different. And this thing that works for you will probably not work for other people. Like many people are very, kind of confidently recommend things for other people, but those are the things that work for them. But many times they don't work for other people. So I think a lot of it is trying to understand yourself and figuring out what really works for you. So I want to give you one example of that. This friend of mine, he does experiments. He's a mathematician and he does experiments in psychology. So he saw that there are lots of methods of changing habits, and he wanted to measure which ones are the best. So he had like 5,000 people try out these different sets of habits. Okay, these are very short habits, and they were all about reshaping a daily habit. And everybody reported how well did they actually succeed in keeping with the plan. And there was a very surprising result that there was one method which was almost, I think, 1.5 times or 2 times better than any other method. And it was simplicity itself. And that actually points to what I'm saying. You can watch the video on our YouTube channel. It's a 3-step process. First, you identify in the past when you have succeeded in changing a habit, a significant habit. Okay, so that's step number 1. Step number 2, ask yourself why it worked. And step number 3, do that for the habit that you want to change. So it is kind of scaled for you. And it does many things at once. Firstly, you're working with something that works for you. Secondly, you have a confidence that, yes, I have changed this in the past. I'm doing the same thing. So it's probably going to work. So check out the video. I think that's very interesting. Shelley, what's the homework for us?
Thank you, Shrikant. And Shrikant, I'm glad you said that, because one of my concerns in this meetup was that my way is the way everybody should do it, or your way or Mark's way, and I wanted to make sure that I conveyed that that is not accurate. That's why it's important to pay attention to your body and listen to your body and figure out what works for you. So thanks for sharing that, because that will really be helpful. And I don't want anyone to leave that comparing themselves to anyone else. Find what works for you and how to set those habits so you have success for you.
I want to add one thing. I mean, see, that is one thing I like about this meetup, that people are very honest and direct in expressing what is in their hearts. And they have no qualms about speaking, even when they disagree with one another. So what ends up happening is that you hear all these different views. What happens in most contexts is that it becomes kind of, do you agree with me or not? Here, people are actually trying to listen to people. So you have this entire orchestra of suggestions on sleep, for example, okay? And you now you are in a position of saying, okay, which ones of these are going to work? So the structure itself kind of lends itself to it. So it's a good idea to put your thoughts on it is a fantastic idea to put your thoughts on the table. And then actually we're spending so much time letting people talk through their ways of doing things and then discussing with this. So I think this is just perfect way of doing that kind of scaled approach. So what's the homework, Shelley?
Okay, so the homework is, we talked about, hopefully you talked about in the breakout room, one area maybe you wanted to work on, maybe you identified one. And so determine one change you commit to make over the next 2 weeks and the specific steps you will take. So you're being very specific about this. Create a plan for what you will do when those excuses inevitably enter your mind. Now, those could be excuses or things that happen to waylay your plans, whatever. And then journal each day about both your struggles and your successes. Be writing about this. And that's it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Folks, thank you very much. We have some incredible meetups coming up this weekend. What I'm doing is that I'm using the weekends to open up new areas. I'm getting really powerful thinkers to come and talk to us so that's tomorrow, Saturday at 12 p.m. There's this guy, Brian McVay. He's written like 16 books, and he's writing a book on the self-healing mind, how you can use the power of language and consciousness to transform your life. This is based on, he's a student of Julian Jaynes. So that's going to be very special. It's a full book that he's writing, and he's doing the meetups with us as he's writing the book. So that's at 12 o'clock. Then on 12 o'clock on Sunday, it's going to be another amazing meetup. This is from the Center for the Study of Digital Life. And we're going to be talking about the meaning crisis that Jordan Peterson talks about, the crisis of meaning. People saying, okay, what is the meaning of life? Looking back when people had myths and religion and all of that is lost. And what these folks have done is that they kind of go back and look at what it was like during the time that was dominated by myths. And they look at kind of different technologies like writing, printing, TV, and the internet, and what that has done to the way in which people approach meaning. And they use ideas of people like Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, different psychologists, including Julian Jaynes, and people who are students of media, like Marshall McLuhan, in order to make sense of the question of meaning today. We're going to have the author of a paper who, that we are looking at. It's part of a book called Ecology of Inner Senses. What are our faculties and how do we use them? So for example, during the mythical time, we used our faculty of imagination a lot more than our faculty of memory. With writing and printing, we started using the memory a lot more, but come TV, we are dominated again by imagination with very little grounding we just get, and social media kind of exacerbates that. So this is kind of understanding of how you're using media and what it is doing for you or to you. So it's a very deep work. So please, join us, and it'll be fun. We also have a great meetup on Carl Jung's idea of individuation. That's at 2:30 on Sunday. All right, folks. So we'll see you soon. And Shelley, do you know what you're going to do 2 weeks from today?
I do. And I'm excited to talk about it. It's going to be regrets, how regrets impact us negatively and what to do about it.
Wonderful. Give me just a second. Let me tell you what's, I think John is going to be doing something on measure for measure.
Measure for measure and sincerity.
Yes, sincerity. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So that's going to be next Friday. So folks, see you soon. Bye. Thanks, Shelley.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.